Hi everyone, how's it going? Welcome to the channel and welcome to Wythall Transport Museum. Today we're here for Longships and Octagons, which is celebrating MG and Rover cars. We'll start off then with this little line of three. Rover 75 Tourer diesel. Of course the largest and probably the most luxurious of the Rovers towards the end of production. This one's 2003/2004, just depends when it was made and registered and all that other stuff. Next up is this Rover 25 Monogram Garnet, number 1 of 10. I like that little 10 graphic. So I have a soft spot for nice looking graphics. Yeah, a lovely colour. It's quite nice to see a car that's quite rare, especially in a rare colour. An MG ZR as well, so spot the difference. Rover 25 versus MG ZR. Both of these are 5-door, both built roughly the same sort of time, 02 and 52 reg. I also quite like that in the windscreen. It's something simple, I know, but I like it. So a little bit of information on this 25 Monogram in Garnet. No. A little bit of information on this Rover 25 Monogram Garnet then. The car was bought on the 1st of February this year. It also has a full service history from new and it's only got 55,000 miles on it, which, considering it's an 02 reg, is quite small really. It's a low number. The thing is, these cars drive quite nicely. Of course, replace the Rover R8 200 series. In fact, there goes another 25 as it heads off out, or 200. 200 that one is. It's a bit earlier than this. Yeah, I always have a soft spot for these cars. So naturally we are here today in Millie the Mini because we are here on the same weekend as the Pride of Longbridge event at Longbridge. But obviously today isn't necessarily about the Minis, it's about the MGs and the Rovers that were built at Longbridge. As you can see, quite a good selection of cars here today. Several Tourers, several saloons. That one there is a V8. Apparently this one here is a Monogram, which for those of you who don't know, because I mean really I didn't actually know properly what it meant until today because I'm not really too much into this scene. But apparently what it means is, think Land Rover, Range Rover with the autobiography series. Basically it means you get a different spec sheet. It means that you can almost essentially customise your car to your taste, obviously if you're the original buyer. Anybody after that obviously just sort of has to like what you've done to the car essentially. That's the thing. Nowadays monograms are quite desirable because they are, in a word, quite unique. They certainly appeal more to the tastes of the original owner. But I imagine when they were newer and say MG and Rover were still fully in production at Longbridge, I would imagine they might not have been the easiest to sell on because, as I say, the cars are quite unique to the original owner's tastes. But this I like. Many of them are done very tastefully. This one's about to head off. Like Pride of Longbridge though, we got a few members from different countries. This one's come from Germany and that one's come from Romania. This particular one is a 100th anniversary. This particular edition, I suppose you could call it, wasn't actually sold in the UK. This one's a diesel, but they made it look a little bit like a V8. Romania is actually quite a distance to come here, so they are fully dedicated to coming to events like this here in the UK. But the thing is, this particular event's been put on by the MG Car Club Z register, hence why there's so many MG Z cars and their Rover counterparts. And a few others, such as the 800 and obviously the Mini and a few other cars around the corner. But this event's been put on this particular weekend because of course Pride of Longbridge, one of the biggest events to celebrate cars built at Longbridge. So it makes sense for all those that have travelled such a distance to come over and have another event they can enjoy before heading back to their home countries, which is really quite nice. It means it's all inclusive for everyone. Again, with having the MG and the Rover versions side by side, you can spot the difference between the two. Usually the MG version has got larger wheels, obviously the smaller logo at the back. I kind of like that actually, that suits quite nicely, it appeals to me. That's a V8 as well. Most of these will have the Ford V8 engine. I think at the time Rover and MG had a bit of a relationship with BMW as well as Ford to supply engines, so it's a bit of a mix and match at times, but quite nice either way. I think Morgan have actually got, or at least they used to have, quite a similar relationship with BMW and Ford to supply engines for them. At the end here we have a selection of MGFs and TFs. Of course, the key difference really between the two cars, engineering wise shall we say, is more or less the suspension. The F has got hydrogas, whereas the TF, such as this one here, has got more traditional springs. And that's because at the time, when the F came out, the Metro was also still in production. That used hydrogas suspension, and then when the Metro went out of production, it just wasn't worth the cost to MG and Rover to obviously keep developing it and using it on one single model. So that's why with the TF, when that came around in about 2002, 2003, they changed to spring suspension. This particular car here, I was chatting with the owner of that a little bit earlier on. They have said that it's had a rear end impact from a BMW at some point, which is quite ironic when you think of the MG and Rover relationship with BMW and how that all turned out. But apparently it's had that happen, and really the people who have worked on it have done a seriously good job to make it look as original as possible. It's a credit to them. It shows what local businesses can do. I don't think this one's travelled too far today. I think the owners of it said they're from Leicestershire somewhere. Yeah, I like the colour on it. British Racing Green. But I do like the colour on this one as well. Trophy Blue, I think it's called. I have actually driven this one very, very briefly, but not on camera. Just because it was sort of end of the day, have a quick spin and this sort of thing. But drives nicely. Clutch is very heavy on that one. This ZT has obviously had quite a bit of modification done to it. As you can see, it's got a supercharger on there, big silicon piping, yellow headlights, which is quite a French sort of style. Lovely wheels, look like they come from a Mercedes-Benz, judging by the centre cab. An X-Power SV, again Ford engine in that. Uses quite a bit of Italian parts on that actually, because I think it was De Tomaso. They had a version of it, and MG bought the rights to use the underpinnings and things like that, and they put their own body on it and various other things. It's quite a long story to tell. I'll have to go into a bit more detail about that at some point. Lovely colour changing paint on this one. Love that. The Rover P5B Coupe that we had at our event at Jilks not that long ago. 3.5 litre. Automatic, love the smell. And amongst all these ZTs, ZRs and ZSs, we have these two Rover 800s. One being the more fastback style hatchback and the other being full-on coupe. This one's coming from France. It looks like it's coming from Normandy actually, judging by the writing at the bottom of the number plate. And again, it's nice to see that this is an international affair. Automatic, very comfy and very luxurious for long journeys, I'd imagine. This particular car also came to our fuel power gathering at Jilks, wearing its brand new number plate, which it didn't have 2 weeks or so ago now. Vitesse model, it's got a turbo. It's quite funny, when you look at these cars in pictures you think, oh, it's not huge, but actually in person it is big. It's actually longer than my Renault. It's just the bonnet on it. I think later models had Honda engines potentially. I know there's certainly a bit of a crossover with Honda and Rover engines at some point with this. It's quite nice to see this here. Big old exhaust though, that does sound good. I was following this car back home, or back to our overnight stop last night, and it does sound good. Collection of Rover 75s and MG ZTs here as well. This particular one is a 190. It's got a V6 engine underneath the bonnet, 24 valve quad cam. Really not a lot of space under there, is it really? Wouldn't do too well in my reviews section for accessibility, given that this is all the room you've got in the world to get your hand in. Have a look at some pictures here. This is all quite nice. An EU4 development car. This particular one was part of the development programme to make the cars conform with changing EU regs due in 2006. The difference is in this to an EU3 ZT are apparently an altered ABS system, different immobiliser system, fly-by-wire throttle. It's got 3 catalytic converters instead of just 2. different induction system and airbox, a new engine management system, and a coolant reservoir situated at the offside rear of the engine bay. So there we go, just a few of the differences between an EU4 and an EU3. And I think a lot of people are starting to head off now because it is actually raining at the minute. But also I think the organisers of the event want to bring this to a bit of a close fairly soon. It is currently 2:30 and we've got until 4 o'clock with this place. But anyway, I think a few people are starting to leave, so they want to bring it to a bit of a close. Anyway, MGB GT, absolutely love this one. Belongs to a friend of the channel who's part of the MG Car Club Young Members branch. This particular one you can find on Instagram, Molly the MGB GT. Lovely interior, loving the colours of that. Kept very period correct. I do like it. Croker and Bridger, dealers in London and Turin as well. Maybe I'll get a sticker like that one day for Millie. At one point my mum and dad used to have a Mini and an MGB GT, so it'd actually be quite fun to get the two together for a small photo shoot in that regard. Tiny train line just here as well, which is quite nice. In fact, I think it's coming round in a moment. Here is the world's smallest train. It does go across like that. Anyway, MGZS from Ireland. Obviously quite different from the latest MGS, which we have filmed a couple of reviews on now. Like it. I like the little graphic they got there as well. The ZR as well from Germany. I think we saw this one yesterday actually at Pride of Longbridge. In fact, that was probably with our stand. Yes, it was. Right hand drive though, which is quite different. And this one I believe is called the Black Pearl. This has also come from Germany. In fact, we found a few cars that come from Germany here. Again, it's nice to see they've made the journey over for the events here in England this weekend. L Series diesel. There's Joseph Lloyd's 45 V6. We've seen this car plenty of times on the channel at previous shows. I will have to do a proper review on this one at some point. Lovely ZR as well. Streetwise, kind of like a Dacia Sandero stepway, only obviously a bit older in the Rover version. ZT Tourer. A quite well modified MG ZR. Love the paintwork on it. Monogram as well, number 28 of 34 built. And quite a few more just over here. That one's been very heavily modified, you can see. Ooh, gorgeous little MGA next to a TF. I like an MGA. 1600cc engine in this one. Has been to Pride of Longbridge. In fact, I think, to be perfectly honest, given where we are, we're only about 10 minutes from Longbridge, so more likely every single car here has been, including this little one as well. Have that number plate. And that sort of brings an end to the cars here, although that Tomcat, I think it's the only one here now, and that one comes from the Netherlands. Let's just have a quick look. MGTC 1949. Lovely, 31st of August 1949 this particular one was built. Attends plenty of shows and rallies and things like that. Lovely vehicle. Anyway, that sort of brings an end to our show walk around here at Wythall Transport Museum for the MG Car Club Z register, Longships and Octagons. So thank you very much for watching. Hopefully you've enjoyed it. See you in the next video. Until then, farewell.